You're watching the Red Zone Sports Show on Fox 5.
Straight ahead in the Red Zone, UNLV takes on the 20th ranked team in the nation.
Love your teammates tonight. Love this program. Love what we're building. Love what we're doing.
Head coach Tony Sanchez is in studio to break everything down. Plus, we preview Saturday's game in San Diego against the Aztecs. And the Runnin' Rebels kick the season off exhibition style. The Red Zone is poised for 30 minutes of UNLV action.
This is the Fox 5 Red Zone Sports Show, presented by RC Willey. Your home, your way.
Good evening. Welcome inside the Red Zone. Kevin Bollier alongside UNLV head football coach Tony Sanchez. Coming off a game last night against a very well-rounded Fresno State team. That might be the best team on the schedule that you see all year.
Yeah, those two, and I haven't gone through those two in Utah State. Those are pretty good football teams, but they do a really, really good job. McCarron's everything they write about, man. He does a great job of managing them, and that's a stiff defense out there. They do a really good job of keeping the game in front of them and rallying and tackling.
Well, let's look at the highlights of this one. We're going to begin with the first half.
You've had a great attitude all week. Great attitude through practice. Make sure it reflects in the effort you give tonight. Don't be afraid to spill blood tonight. It's going to hurt doing what we need to do. It's going to hurt, and you're going to have to bleed for it. Accept it. Embrace it. That's the damn challenge of the night. So let's go out there and let's do what we do because we love each other. All right, roll.
UNLV had the ball first, but went 3 and out. The punt was partially blocked by Fresno State, and the Bulldogs had great field position for their first possession at the Rebel 45. They struck quickly. From the 12, Marcus McMarion hits Jameer Jordan for the touchdown. Fresno had a 7-0 lead less than 5 minutes into the game. UNLV was able to move the chains in its next possession as Max Gillum hits Brandon Presley for the first down. But on 3rd and 6 from the 34, Gillum throws it out of bounds and the Rebels were forced to punt. The defense held and got the ball back, and UNLV drove in the field goal range, but Evan Pantels missed wide right from 46 yards out. Fresno drove right down the field. McMarion rolls left and finds Ronnie Rivers for 17 yards into UNLV territory. On 3rd and 3 from the 21, the Jets sweep to Darian Grimm for the first inside the 10. On the first play of the second quarter, the pitch to Rivers, and he finds the end zone, and the Bulldogs opened up a 14-0 lead. The Rebel offense started to find some rhythm. On 3rd and 6 at the 29, Gillum to Tyleik Collins for a first down. Then Gillum to Presley for 17 more to move the chains at the Fresno 46. But the drive would stall. On 3rd down, the pass once again out of bounds, and the Rebels were forced to punt. The next Fresno drive was shut down as McMarion is picked off by Javen White, who returns it to the 27, but the offense went 3 and out. And just before the half, Fresno would out a 35-yard field goal. The teams went into the locker room at halftime with the Bulldogs up 17-0. Let's start with the defense. You get Evan Ostry back from injury, and I thought the defense actually played really well in the first half.
They did. I thought they played really well in the first half. Khalili coming back was a big thing too, along with, like you said, Evan Ostry, and that's a really good offensive unit. To hold them to those 17 points, and it probably should have been a little bit less. If we could have extended some of those drives offensively. That was a game where they were taking a lot of time off the clock, and we needed to do the exact same thing, shorten that half a little bit, and we never really found our rhythm on offense. And once again, have an opportunity to make it a 7-3 game and miss another field goal. So those are the things that we're going to have to execute better to going down the stretch and win some ball games. But I thought overall the defense played really well the first half.
Running the football was tough sledding in the first half, especially. They obviously stacked up there to make sure that nothing happened. Almost wanting to force you guys to throw the football.
They did. One of the things they did real smart on their end was, they did a lot of drop coverage. They did some calculated zone blitzes, but, they weren't going to play zero. They weren't going to play man. They were going to make sure that they kept the game in front of them and rallied to the football. So, Max was a little off last night. Didn't throw the ball as well as he had been in the last couple of games. There was some reads, some missed things you see watching film this morning where, you have one time a safety rolls down and we got the post behind him and he just kind of flushes himself out of the pocket a little too fast. past, didn't get to see it. So again, those are things you have to execute when you're playing a team like that to have a chance to win that game.
And one of the things that stood out with Gillum was he was throwing the balls out of bounds a lot and not giving guys even a chance to make a play, especially on third down. I think in a situation where you know you're going to have to score some points, you'd rather even see a 50-50 ball go up there than just chucking it out of bounds with no chance for anybody to make a play.
Yeah, you know, there's a couple specific plays. You know, we had Bruin called twice where you have a corner out from the tight end spot, Noah Bean, and both times he was open, and you know, and then the balls both sailed and landed out of bounds. You got to put those on the money. He did it all week in practice. And then one time we ran a fake slip screen up the sideline, and Woods is covered, but it's one-on-one. You got to put that. You know, one of the things we talked to him about was that ball's got to be in play. Give him a chance to go up and get it or get a PI.
So it's 17-0. Obviously, still a game there going into the halftime. What's the message to keep those guys focused as you win?
You know, the energy was real good at halftime. I mean, defensively, those guys were feeling, you know, good about the plan. They knew that, you know, there was a little spot in the first half where the tackling kind of went subpar for a minute, but they rallied and did a good job with that. Got the turnover. They were feeling pretty good offensively. There were some things that we talked about that we felt like we had an opportunity to execute in the second half, but it was so important to try to get a stop, and then we had to get something going offensively. Coming out of that locker room, having them score right away, it wasn't a backbreaker yet. You know, I mean, it's still not too bad. But then that pick again takes you inside the 5-yard line. Next thing you know, you're looking up and it's 31-0.
Well, let's go to the second half highlights. Show you what happened. The Rebels just basically got down a little bit, and then Fresno put the game away. Fresno had the ball to start the second half and put together an 8-play, 74-yard drive, capped by this 9-yard touchdown pass from McMarion to tight end Kyle Rittering to make it 24-0. After UNLV moved the ball into Bulldog territory, Gillum was picked off by Jerron Bryant, who tightropes down the sideline 39 yards to the Rebel 5-yard line. On the first play from scrimmage, Josh Hokett turns the corner and dives for the pylon for the touchdown to extend the lead to 31-0. After a Fresno field goal up the lead to 34, the Bulldogs hit again on the first play of the fourth quarter as Darian Grimm puts it in, and it was 41-0. Charles Williams put together some nice runs for UNLV, first rattling off 14. Then the Fresno native strikes again as he fights for 24 more. But on first and goal at the 1, Williams runs into his own man, then tries to bounce back to the outside, but is drugged down for a loss of 13. The Rebels had to settle for a Pantel's field goal, but were still on the board. Fresno went ground game to drain the clock. Savion Johnson with a 37-yard run. That would get the ball all the way down to the 2-yard line, and Johnson would finish the drive by scoring on the very next play to make the lead 48-3 with just over 8 minutes left. The Rebels brought in freshman quarterback Kenyon Oblad, who saw his first collegiate action and got 2 offensive series under his belt, but the scoring was over. The Bulldogs racked up 466 yards of total offense and were 7 for 7 in red zone scoring chances, showing why they're the 20th ranked team in the country as they cruise to a 48-3 win.
We just said in the locker room we got 3 one-week seasons, so we got to focus on each week when it comes up. Next week we got to act like that's our only game on the schedule. We're 0-0 and we just got to take care of that week.
I think we should treat every game from here on out. I mean, we know we got 3 left, but just the emphasis that we do have 3 left, let's try to finish strong and leave a mark, something that people can look back on, and then the guys who got to come back next year, they have something positive to work off of.
We touched on this a little bit earlier in the show, but throughout this streak that's been going on, the defense has given up a lot of points, but on the offensive side of the ball, not being able to move the chains. They've been out in the field a lot.
They have. You know, that's one of the biggest things early on when we were playing better football. You know, we were running the ball so well. So the accumulation of yards is one thing, but I've always felt like if you can run the ball, it's going to really help your team. You're going to chew up some of the time on the clock. You're going to keep your defense off the field. And they were just on the field too long this last game. And again, we got to eliminate some of those turnovers. They're not just turnovers. They're a week ago, the pick 6. You know, now this one inside the 10-yard line, and we've got to eliminate those things.
Winning the physical battle is always something you want to do, obviously, every week. Fresno won it last night. That's a big physical group.
But you even talked about it in your post-game press conference. They won the physical battle last night.
They did. I mean, their defense is a very physical team. We've got to do a better job of just, continuing to be gritty and, and fight through those things. And, again, you've got to be able to run the football to win games. Doesn't mean you're not going to throw the ball a bunch, but you have to be able to run it when you need to. I thought our defense actually did a good job against their run game for the most part. We got hurt on the edges a couple times, but that's as stout as we've played in a while up the middle. But again, McCarron, turned a lot of those things into positive. So we just got to keep plugging away. It's like the messages you heard from the players. There's still 3 games to go. It's one at a time. But our seniors have done such a great job of moving this program forward and making it a better place. They have a chance to go ahead and continue to do that and leave that mark. And then the young guys got to remember, hey, we've got to win a game this week. And at the same time, we're developing this program for the long haul.
Armani Rogers suited up for the first time since the Arkansas State game. Where is he at in his recovery, and how close is he? Could he see the field at San Diego this week?
We were really hoping so. So last night we knew it would be, it was really slim to him getting in there. He had a decent week of practice. Throwing the ball, he was really good, but running the ball, he just wasn't where he really needed to be. This morning I went in and talked to the medical guys with him. They went ahead and did the ultrasound so you could kind of see what was going on in there. There was a little swelling that occurred from last week and last night and stuff, so they're going to back him off a little bit at the beginning of the week. We'll see. I think it'll be an end-of-the-week type decision again, but both guys would end up playing if he did play, just based on what I heard this morning. So I would say it's a 50-50 in the air.
All right, we're going to take our first break right now. When we come back, we're going to look ahead to this Saturday as the Rebels travel to San Diego to take on the Aztecs. What are the keys to the game, and what is SDSU worried about most? Find out on the backside of the break.
You're watching the Fox 5 Red Zone Sports Show, presented by RC Willey. Your home, your way.
The Rebels hit the road this Saturday for a primetime game in America's finest city as they take on San Diego State. It has been a bizarre season for San Diego State. The Aztecs lost quarterback Christian Chapman and running back Jawan Washington to injuries early in the season, but have still managed to scrape together 7 wins in 9 games. And by scrape, we mean tight contests in the fourth quarter. SDSU has won 6 of their 7 games by single digits, including last night's rally past New Mexico. But just as UNLV's luck would have it, Chapman and Washington are returning to the lineup, and both saw action in Albuquerque in a first test off the injured list. That's a tandem that has grinded out a lot of games, exactly the way head coach Rocky Long likes to play football.
The trick in our system, if we win, it means they don't get the ball very much, that we keep the ball away from them.
A solid running attack has been the recipe for success for San Diego for a while. But it's not just the running backs, and there have been some good ones like Donnell Pumphrey and Rashad Penny. All of them have run behind big, athletic, physical offensive lines. And this year is no different.
You don't have good running backs, or nobody knows they're good running backs unless your offensive line's pretty good. Last year they were really, really young and played very inconsistently. They got pretty good by the end of the year.
The Aztec defense has to be respected as well. They've shut down a lot of teams this season, including limiting New Mexico to only 142 yards of total offense last night. But there's a respect factor for UNLV's run game. The Aztec D will have their eye on number 3, Lexington Thomas.
Lexington, the running back, does a very good job finding holes for helping his linemen. He also does a good job leading his team. I see him talking to his O-lineman, his quarterback, just making sure everybody's on the same page, and I like that about him.
UNLV has lost to San Diego State 7 of the last 8 seasons, and they haven't won in San Diego since 2000, in John Robinson's second season. It's going to take a 4-quarter complete effort in all 3 phases. You're going to have to push to the very end to get the job done. All right, before we dig into San Diego State, you just heard the stat that UNLV hasn't won in San Diego since 2000. It was, I think, since 1993 in San Jose State. When you talk about, trying to turn a program around that has kind of been down at the bottom, those are the figures as you redo the culture and
change things, but that's the kind of stuff that you're dealing with over the last few decades.
Yeah, there's no doubt. You hear stats like that, and you're like, you got to be kidding me. It's been that long. But, you know, it's funny. You talk about San Diego State right there. You talk about all the close games they've won. And, you know, that's what great programs do. You know, they find a way to win even when things aren't going well, when, you know, you got guys out. And it's taken a long time for them to build that, but they're at a point now where, I mean, they've just got a core belief that they're going to find a way to get it done. And that's what we're working towards. I mean, you know, that's what you're trying to develop within your own program, is that type of belief that will allow you to make the play that the other team has been making, you know, and that's just a whole turn of attitude, a whole turn of a culture. So we're working towards that, and those guys have done a heck of a job of keeping that going.
So they get Chapman back, the winningest quarterback in San Diego State history, by the way. He eclipsed that mark early in the season before he got injured. They get Washington back, their running back, just in time for UNLV, as it always seems to happen. But those two guys are game changers on the offense, just because they control that offense and kind of keep everything under control.
Yeah, you know, they were playing really, really good football early in the season, had, you know, a big win, you know, Pac-12 win and all that. And then to see them kind of, again, try to figure out how they're going to win games. They won a lot of tight games at the last second. You see that San Diego State one, you know, been very advantageous. But now with those guys back, they're kind of back to who they are, you know. So it'll be a tough challenge. We knew it would be. Our guys have just got to do a great job of prepping this week, staying positive, you know, got to continue to play defense the way we did early in that game last night. And then offensively, we've got to come up with a really, really good plan. Yeah,
and Rocky Long talked about the fact that they want to keep you guys off the field offensively. That's always been a mainstay with Rocky Long teams, whether it was in San Diego or when he was in New Mexico previously. They're going to run the football, but on the defensive side of the ball, you guys have got to move the chains this week.
We do, you know, and when you look at teams like Fresno State, and you look at teams like, you know, San Diego State, you know, the teams that have consistently been, you know, really good in our conference, you know, even Boise State when they're rolling, you know, they're good running football teams. I mean, if you're going to have a really good defense, I guarantee you there's a good run game behind that defense. So that's something that they've done and hung their hat on there, and something we need to get back to doing.
It's you know, maybe a little thing, but it is a grass field down there in San Diego, and it's not something that players play on all that much at the collegiate level anymore. How much in the walkthrough will you guys get a feel for what cleats to wear, because they haven't been on grass a whole lot?
Yeah, we'll bring a couple different out there. Rocky, our equipment manager, he does a really good job with that. So they'll have a bunch of different options. And, you know, the biggest thing with that, it'll be a fast field because they do cut it short. But there's some slippage involved there, you know, just the way you got to dig in. So you got to have the right equipment for that.
We're going to take a step away from football for just a moment, and when we come back, we're going to look at the Runnin' Rebels exhibition game that happened on Friday night at the Thomas & Mack. What does UNLV have to work on most as they move towards the regular season? That's next as the Red Zone rolls on.
You're watching the Fox 5 Red Zone Sports Show, presented by RC Willey. Your home, your way.
The Runnin' Rebels getting ready to start the season this Saturday night, but before things get going for real, they had an exhibition game on Friday that gave UNLV some things that they need to work on.
All of the pageantry at the Thomas & Mack was back as the Runnin' Rebels played their sole exhibition game of the season against Montana State Billings. The Yellow Jackets gave UNLV all they could handle, as this game featured 15 lead changes and 6 ties. Chris Clyburn proved to be the hero as he drove the lane for a layup with 1.4 seconds left to give the Rebels an 83-81 win.
We got a set call, it's called pistol, and Noah came down the left side. It's just a little dribble handoff. Big comes at the screen. They switched. I don't know what they did. They got stuck, so I had a wide open layup.
I was concerned when I saw the scores in conference, and I was like, holy smokes, you know. I hope we don't have one of those. I wanted it to be competitive, but I didn't want it to come down to the last shot. So nonetheless, they persevered.
UNLV shot 48% from the field and ended the first half on a 13-0 run to open up a 6-point lead. But they know they have to shoot better.
When you shoot the ball, you got to have amnesia, right? So it is what it is. Whether you made one or missed one, you got to kind of keep your head high and keep on pushing forward.
Defensively, UNLV gave up 13 three-pointers in the game and were beat to a lot of loose balls. Both will be points of emphasis moving forward.
I think that we did a pretty good job in defense. We just need to keep that energy up and guard the three-point line better, and just be solid on D.
We couldn't get the loose balls. We did, there were a lot of little things that I could point to that I think are very correctable, which is the good thing. So it's not like we don't have the length or the talent or the athleticism. We just have to keep honing it And, we got to do a much more intense job over the next 4 or 5 days of getting them ready.
The games start counting on Saturday when Loyola Marymount comes to the T&M. The exhibition served its purpose to get a lot of players minutes, but the rotation will tighten moving forward.
A lot of different guys that we got on the floor, fellas, and got to go back to figuring out who's who and what's what and start to figure out our rotation because it gets real next Saturday.
We are back to wrap up the Red Zone right after this, but as we go to break, here's a look at how other Mountain West football teams did over the weekend.
You're watching the Fox 5 Red Zone Sports Show, presented by RC Willey. Your home, your way.
3 games left, 3 division rivals, as Max Gillum said, 3 one-game seasons starting this Saturday.
Yeah, again, 3 opportunities. We got to go out there. We got to stay positive. We got to stick to work. We got to keep on growing every single week. So we'll be excited and ready to go Saturday.
All right, good luck, Coach. We'll be down in San Diego with the team. We'll break it all down next Sunday in the Red Zone. Thanks for joining us for this one. We leave you tonight with the UNLV Plays of the Week. Good night.
The Fox 5 Red Zone Sports Show was presented by RC Willey, your home.